page and so forth. Nonetheless, it is important to recognize that knitting is inherently a 3D process. So for hand knitting, it becomes kind of sort of awkward to describe certain 3D operations on a 2D medium. And for machine knitting, we do really need a full 3D modeling tool. So I looked at this problem as a computer graphics researcher back when I was at Cornell, and we developed a new modeling framework for computer graphics purposes, and we introduced the concept of stitch meshes. What I really want to talk about are the improvements we've made on stitch meshes, so that they are no longer limited to computer graphics purposes. But I first need to quickly describe stitch meshes. So when we look at a knitted structure like the one on the right, we can consider it as a collection of yarn loops that are intertwined together. For defining our stitch meshes, we took the top part of this yarn loop and the bottom part of another loop that is pulled through it, forming a stitch. Of course, this stitch is connected to its neighbors at 6 different points, as shown here. In our stitch mesh structure, we represent this stitch as a quad-shaped polygonal face. So this face also has the same connections to its neighbors along its edges. And the yarn level model this face represents looks like something like this. So as you see, the geometry of the yarn level model is not exactly the same, but the topology is identical. That is, the yarn pieces, that is the way that the yarn pieces are pulled through each other, is exactly the same. So at this point, we don't really care about the geometry at all. We're going to recover it later on in the later processes. What we do really want to encode is the topology, that is, the knitting instructions. And by tiling the stitch mesh face, we can form a stitch mesh that encodes a piece of knitted structure. So a stitch mesh face can represent different types of stitches. For example, a quad-shaped face can be a knit or a purl. We can also have increases or decreases by using faces with more than 4 edges. And of course, we can have a number of different types of increases or decreases. So we built a stitch type library to store all these stitch types, and each face of a stitch mesh corresponds to one of these stitch types. And we simply use color coding to display the type of stitch that is represented by each face. We also have some special types of stitches that are automatically placed for cast-ons and bind-offs. And we can represent cables as well. So if you look at a little section of this cable, we see that it's formed by changing the order that the stitches are connected to the ones on the next row. And this order can be encoded with a special cable face. Now, in the user interface, we use a special cable edge to store this information, and the cable face is introduced automatically only when it's needed. So this is basically what a stitch mesh looks like. The question is, well, how do we build a stitch mesh? Well, here's how. We begin with an input mesh that defines the overall 3D shape of the knitted structure. And we use an interactive modeling framework for defining the desired stitch mesh on it. So our process begins with labeling. So given an input mesh, we start from a border and specify the knitting directions over the entire surface of the input mesh. And of course, we can go back and edit the knitting directions to whatever we want as desired. So after the labeling process, we tessellate the mesh to generate our initial stitch mesh. At this point, the size of a face, for the stitch mesh that is, corresponds to the size of a stitch. So this is the process of generating a stitch mesh, starting with an input mesh. And once our stitch mesh is ready, and the stitch mesh generation is done, we can now continue to edit the stitch mesh to give it the desired stitch mesh, to achieve the desired stitch mesh model. So for this purpose, we have developed a number of low-level operations for changing the stitch type or adjusting the placement of increases and decreases. We also developed some high-level operations, such as placing ribs or tiling some patterns over the surface. So once we're happy with the stitch mesh, we generate the final yarn level model through offline relaxation. And this process has 3 stages. It starts with mesh-based relaxation, and then we generate a yarn level model, and finally we perform yarn level relaxation. So let's start with the mesh-based relaxation. The mesh-based relaxation first moves the vertices of the stitch mesh to a smooth surface that is defined by the input mesh. And then it slides the vertices on the smooth surface to estimate the final shape of the knitted structure, the final shape that the knitted structure will take, based on the knitting instructions encoded in the stitch mesh. So at this point, we can observe that certain parts of the model is compressed or stretched. And this is very important to visualize. So if the stretching and compression is moderate, we can reasonably expect that the knitted model will conform to the desired shape. However, if the stretching and compression is excessive, forcing the knitted model into the desired 3D shape would undoubtedly produce undesirable results. And we can visualize the stretching and compression in both coarse and well directions independently if we want to. So once we're done with the mesh-based relaxation, we can generate the yarn model and perform the yarn level relaxation. So remember that we didn't care about the yarn level geometry early on, and we said we would recover it. Well, this is where we recover it. So the yarn level relaxation procedure operates on the yarn level model, and through a number of iterations, it produces a realistic yarn level shape. And this process worked well for computer graphics purposes, and we could prepare a number of different garment models. But then again, the target of this process was computer graphics. So the question we are trying to answer now is that, can we just remove this last piece about the virtual yarn generation and retarget this framework for some other problems, such as controlling a knitting machine, or providing some hand knitting instructions? Well, to be able to go there, we need to make sure that the stitch mesh represents an actively knittable structure. So for that, we identified 3 limitations of the original stitch meshes for generating knittable structures. And they're about being able to represent knittable tubes, having a mechanism for modeling short rows, and realistically handling mismatched knitting directions. So let's begin with the knittable tubes. So in this example, the tube on the left is knittable, forming a spiral-like knitting progression. And the one on the right is not. Although, the one on the right is conceptually simpler, so we just need to figure out a way to convert it to a knittable structure afterwards, and we would like to use the one on the right. And this can be done actually quite easily. In this case, I'm showing a part of a stitch mesh forming a tube. We just need to specify where we want the stitches to shift to the next row. And the stitches on one side of this shift path will merely deform to connect to the next rows. So on a full garment model, we can have multiple shift paths, of course. And the nice thing about this approach is that we can change the positions of the shift paths anytime we want, so we don't have to specify them once and stick to it. We can modify them later on. So the second limitation, and of course we can generate the yarn level curves if you want to. The second limitation is about short rows. The short rows are actually extremely important for generating 3D shapes with knitted structures. In this case, in this example, a number of successively shorter short rows were knitted, followed by successively longer short rows to produce a sharp cornice. And short rows short rows do come up in a lot of different places. Probably the most common one is the heels of socks, but they're certainly not related to them. Certainly not limited to them. They can show up in all sorts of different places. So here's the way we incorporate short rows with stitch meshes. Let this be the stitch mesh row, and we're going to have a short row afterwards. And after the short row, we're going to continue knitting additional rows, like so. So all we need to do to incorporate short rows is to introduce a new type of stitch, as a new type of stitch mesh face with a triangular shape. And the yarn level model this face represents is actually something quite simple. So, well, it merely connects the yarn from the previous rows to the next ones. So once again, the geometry and the actual lengths of these loops are not important at all. What is important is encoding the correct knitting instructions. And here are the short rows on the 3D model and the yarn level topology that this particular stitch mesh represents. So finally, we're looking at the mismatched knitting directions. So mismatched knitting directions happen when two consecutive rows disagree on the knitting direction. So if we simply ignore the mismatched directions, the stitch mesh represents something rather peculiar. As you see, the green pieces of yarn form these tiny closed loops, as if there are some individual knots here. Of course, this is not how such cases will be handled in reality. Well, something similar happens when the mismatched directions appear in the other way. The way to handle this case in reality would be to have some bind of stitches, of course. And we propose to handle this case by introducing a set of perpendicular faces that combine the yarn on both sides. Yet it's probably not a good idea to display a set of faces sticking out of the surface like this during the stitch mesh modeling process. What we can easily do, what we can easily display is some special type of stitches in between them, and they can be placed in plane like this. It's also important to note that mismatched directions can be unavoidable when there is a three-way junction like this. So in this case, let's assume that a set of rows arrive at the junction from some direction, and another set of rows leave this junction. So as you see, where these two sets meet, they agree on the knitting direction, so there's no problem here in this case. The mismatched directions will appear when we introduce the third set of rows. So the top part is fine in this case, but the left side, we have mismatched directions. We can handle this case, as we discussed earlier, but we can also do something else. We can select one of the existing rows to serve as the special connecting row, and the yarn that connects to this row is merely used for the bind-offs. So these are the three important limitations of the original stitch meshes for generating knittable structures that we identified and addressed. Thus, we believe that we can now use stitch meshes for generating knittable structures. And the next task ahead of us is converting the knitting instructions encoded in the stitch mesh to the appropriate machine reading instructions, so that we can use stitch meshes as a reliable framework for controlling knitting machines. Well, I will conclude by thanking my students, Kui Wu and Hannes Won, as well as my past collaborators and NSF for funding. Well, I really wanted to be there to talk to you about all these and answer your questions, but an unfortunate series of airline incompetence and other plans. Therefore, I'm going to end this talk by saying that if you have any questions or comments, or any interest in collaborating on related topics, please feel free to contact me via email.